The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of WPSL, but you're urged to like and share them on Facebook. It's 6:06 and Wednesday evening, and time for the African American Scene, presented by Howard Insurance in Port St. Lucie, and hosted by Rudy Howard.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Always glad to be with you here on a Wednesday night. Maybe I should find another opening statement, but that just seems to work. Good evening, good evening, good evening.
I'll tell you something about talk radio, the successful shows. They always say the same things. Like Rush always says dittos, or he'll say the excellence in broadcasting network. I always say the spot where the money pours out. And you say good. And you know that Mike's boys, Mike's Car Clinic, those guys on Saturday morning, they go, well, another week has come and gone. Here we are.
Yeah, right. Well, we're going to have an open mic night tonight. For sure. There's nothing to talk about, huh?
Yeah, there's a lot of nothing to talk about.
Oh, my God. Is it unbelievable? You know, I'm really depressed about the whole thing because it's just making the whole country so divided. It is just so tribal right now. It's just horrible. And I don't know what we can do about it, but that's another story for another day. Yeah. We're going to have an open mic night. And if this is the first time you've heard me, what I do is I list some topics. Then I go back through those topics, and then I ask for your comments or your input. Now, first, let me say this. I did something a little different today. I actually sent out a Facebook request to my Facebook family and asked them to give me some topics to discuss tonight on the radio.
I was going to ask you, did you get any response to that, Rudy?
I did. And let me share with you, just because I think it's kind of interesting. One of my clients said, talk about money is the root of all evil. Okay.
Wait a minute. That's a misquote. That would be the love of money is the root of all evil. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, okay. Just to clarify.
Then we had somebody say, talk about term limits, pro and con. And somebody said, I'm still living a tweet nightmare. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah.
And let's see, what is here? And somebody said he's a incredible blank.
An incredible blank. Okay.
Yeah.
Needless to say, a blank, but an incredible blank.
Right, an incredible blank. Okay. And I had one of my Facebook friends said, talk about the cuts in the school budget. And then I had one of my friends, Facebook friends, say to me, he would like to see me do a show on all positive things and no negative things. And Cliff and I talked about that. And I don't know that I do shows about negative things. I do things about current topics. But if he's talking about having a show that's more uplifting, I'm going to seriously take that under advisement and see if there's some topics that I could talk about for an hour.
Or we could talk about bird feeding or sightseeing. Or we could look at the cold, hard facts.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so here's my topics. Hurricane season begins. I'm going to give you some tips to get yourself ready for hurricane season. It began on June the 1st. Topic number 2. Tomorrow is the big day, and Comey's testimony will be tomorrow regarding the Russian situation, collusion, and the president. And, you know, we always talk about a lot of controversial stuff here. We have not really talked about that. So I would like to have your opinion about how you feel about what's going on with the Russian connection and Trump, and just your thoughts. Here's one, and this question came from my assistant. Do you know your neighbors? I want you to think about that for a second. Do you know your neighbors? Do you know your neighbors by name? Do you know anything about your neighbors? It's probably a pretty unfair question for me to ask given my circumstances, which I will tell you later. And finally, there's a proposed budget cut to education of $9 billion. $9 billion.
That's all? No, that's significant. Wow.
It's about a 13% reduction in the federal education budget. How do you feel about that? Now, that was a question from one of my Facebook family, and she asked me, ask the audience how they feel about a cut in the education budget that big. So now there you have it, and if you want to call in, that phone number is 340-1590. That's 340-1590. Okay, let me give you some things to think about in preparation for hurricane season. Okay, if you have hurricane shutters, make sure your tracks have been properly lubricated that you screw into the ground to make sure they work before the big one comes. That's important. Sometimes you might have to put a little WD-40 in there to make sure that the screws go in smoothly and make sure that none of your parts have warped. Make sure you know where your hardware is, okay? For those of you that have the screw-on shutters, make sure you know where all the little twisty bolts are to attach your shutters, and that I'm sure that when they put them up, they always mark them. So just make sure you have them in a place that you can get to. Hey, listen, I got to tell you something. God rest her soul. But before my mother died, the biggest fights we used to have is I would tell her, please don't put anything on top of the shutters. You got the whole garage. Please do not put stuff on top of the shutters.
Let me guess. Macrame, hanging plants?
Oh, God, everything was on it. It was like, she would pile up boxes of stuff. And I said, Mom, it is so unfair. You're not going to put the shutters up. I got to spend a half an hour moving stuff off of the shutters before I put them up. I'm your mother. I said, I get that you're my mother. I ask you one little thing. There's only a little space in here where the shutters are. Don't put anything on top of it. And you know what? She just got to the point where she just completely ignored me. She let me have that little tantrum, Cliff.
Well, don't forget, Rudy, you never ceased to be her little baby. You know,
yeah, that's right.
Your whole life. Doesn't matter how old you are, how big you are, to your mom, you'll always be her little baby. I can guarantee you that.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So, but after a while, she would just look at me, and I'd say, Mom, you're putting stuff. And I would usually do it before a storm came up. I would just go in there every once in a while, and I'd just take a look and I'd go, Mom, please, you got the whole garage. Just don't put stuff on top of the shutters. But she just would look at me and be like, I'm going to do what I want to do. You can say whatever you want to say, but I'm going to do what I want to do anyway. So, and listen, I say that to you because don't wait till the hurricane's coming if you got stuff piled on top of your shutters. Or in some cases, in the newer houses, they built stack places where you stack them along the wall. Hopefully you haven't piled up a whole bunch of stuff in front of it so that when it's come time to use them, that you got to spend a half an hour moving the stuff before you get to your shutters.
Per shutter.
Yeah, right, exactly. Uh, make sure you take a look at your homeowners policies. All the policies now don't automatically come with hurricane coverage, but a responsible agent shouldn't sell you a homeowner's policy without hurricane coverage. But now most of your most of the hurricane coverage on a policy is based on a percentage deductible, like 2% or 5% or 10%, which what that means is that's a percent of your coverage A, which is your building value. So if you have a house that's worth $100,000, your hurricane deductible is 2% of $100,000. Now, the reason why I'm telling you that is years ago, probably 10 years ago, there was a big push. Companies were selling hurricane buybacks, and that disappeared. And for the first time this year, one of my companies has come and they're offering hurricane buybacks again. So if you have a big hurricane deductible, like if you have a pretty big property, you can invest in probably, well, I haven't really priced it yet because I just found out about it last week. But in the past, it would be like $500 or $600. And if you got a $2,500 or $3,000 deductible, that's pretty good investment. Okay, so you could buy it down to like a $500 deductible. And what you should do is ask your agent if that is an option that's available to you. Usually, when one company comes back with it, the other companies will come back with it too. And I've been in this for 40 years, and what I do know is that when you have several years of no significant hurricane damage, companies get greedy for premium dollars. So they'll do some innovative things to try to get the premium dollars cranking. So ask your agent if a hurricane buy down is available to you, because all you really want to do is just say, hey, look, if it's available, and they should be able to get your quote for what it's going to cost, and then you can decide whether or not it's worth it. Okay. Now, the other thing that's important, I have some companies, the screen enclosures are automatically considered part of the dwelling. So it's automatically covered in your coverage A, which is your total building value. Others of the companies separated the screen enclosures because they took such a beating back in 2005. You know, they was paying a fortune putting screens back up. So after that, they started making hurricane screen coverage a separate part of the policy. So in two of my companies, you can buy screen enclosure coverage for limits of $10,000 up to $50,000. Make sure your policy has your screen covered, especially like if you have like a pool area and a screen enclosure. Make sure your screen coverage is in place. Okay. And finally, for my condo owners, I'm going to tell you something. You guys are unbelievable. You buy these beautiful, expensive condos over on the island, and then you don't buy insurance. Just beyond me that you buy these big, expensive condos and you don't buy any insurance. Like nothing's going to happen to you. Surprise, stuff happens. And I can tell you, I can't remember that storm, Cliff, but there was a big storm, and it was prior to 2005, and I don't remember which one that was, but I can remember going over to the island, and all you could see along the edge of the road was contents from some of those big condos. You remember that?
I think that was like Francis and Jean. There were two storms that came the same path.
Yeah, I think
3 weeks apart.
Yeah, I think I think that's it. Yeah. And when you went over there, you saw all these big, beautiful condos and all of their stuff piled up on the edge of the road. Now, because they didn't have any coverage. So now that just doesn't make any sense. If you got one of those big, beautiful condos, you spend $1,000, $1,500 to protect it. Now, and I'm going to tell you, here's the most important reason why. The number one, even if you don't care that much about what's inside of it because you got a lot of money, assessment coverage. Do you know what loss assessment coverage is? If you have loss assessment coverage on your condo policy and the common areas of the condominium get damaged and the costs exceed what's in the condo unit's budget, all of those condos have a right to assess you for the cost that it will take to put the property back into livable condition as it existed prior to the storm. So what does that mean? In one case, now, in order to access the loss assessment coverage, the cause of loss has to be the same as that would be on your policy. Now, you don't necessarily have to have a loss for you to access that coverage. For example, on one of the storms, one of my clients had no damage, but the storm piled sand up the side of the building almost up to the first floor. And they had to come in and take all that sand down and move it back. The unit owners got assessed $1,500 apiece because the cost of doing that exceeded the condo units, the condominium association's budget. Now, my client called me up and said, you know what, I think that's covered. So they sent me the bill for the $1,500 they got from the association. I sent the bill to the insurance company, and the insurance company paid the $1,500. Now, I know some of you listen to me that own condominiums. You didn't even think about that. Nobody's ever told you about that. But now you heard it from your little liberal friend here, Rudy Howard. I'm telling you about loss assessment coverage. So take a look at your policy. If you don't have it, call your agent and just ask them. Say, do I have loss assessment coverage on my policy? And if you don't, you want to get it. And a good agent, knowing that you're in a condo, should not sell you a policy without loss assessment coverage. Okay. So if you have any questions about anything I just talked about, that number, again, is 340-1590. That's 340-1590. And then if you want to talk to me about your individual situation, you can call me at my office at 343-9878. That's 343-9878. And I'll be glad to talk to you.
When is it too late to call to talk about getting some insurance when there's a storm already formed out there that's, say, just off the coast of Africa, but heading this way? Do you have a cutoff time?
That's a good question. What the insurance companies do is they have a longitudinal and latitudinal box. And when the storm gets in that box, everything shuts down. And they send us all emails and say, you cannot write insurance anymore until you hear back from us.
Ooh,
So
okay.
so when it's off the coast of Africa, you're okay.
Right.
But when it starts its march westward,
and it gets into that cone of probability.
Yes.
By then, it might be too late.
Once you get in the box, now because it's in the box, that doesn't mean necessarily it's going to hit us.
Right.
But once it's in that box, they stop because they don't know which direction it's going to go. So they take the road of precaution and they'll just stop writing any policies. Now, and let me tell you that's really important. For this time of year when people are buying new houses, don't get in a situation, which I've seen people get into. They're buying a new house. the storm gets into the cone, into the square, and they can't get insurance for their closing. Now, here's my professional advice. Oh yeah. I've seen that. Here's my professional advice. If that happens to you, do not go through the closing. Do not. Just tell them you will not close until you can get insurance for your property. Because now once you close, you have no insurance, and if the hurricane takes a twist or a turn and hits you, guess what? You just have $200,000 you just flushed down the toilet because you got no coverage. So keep that in mind, all right?
Wow.
Yeah, again, so if you want to ask me, if you want to talk about this, you can call the station here, 340-1590. And if you want a personal consultation with me, that number is 343-9878. We're going to take a little break. Don't touch that dial, because we're going to be right back with the African American scene.
Serving the entire Treasure Coast, Howard Insurance and Associates in Port St. Lucie offers a wide variety of insurance products, along with the very best customer service. Whether you're shopping for the best homeowners coverage at the most affordable value, contact Rudy Howard's team at Howard Insurance and Associates. If you need coverage for your vehicle, call Howard Insurance and Associates, 343-9878. That's 343-9878. Maybe you're planning to add a boat, motorcycle, or RV. Call Howard Insurance and Associates for your free quote at 343-9878 and get the coverage you need at a cost that will fit your budget. For home or business, auto or recreational vehicle, choose Howard Insurance and Associates, 600 Southwest Darwin Boulevard, Suite 206, Port St. Lucie. And for your free rate quote, call them at 343-9878, 343-9878. WPSL Digital 1590 presents CBS Storm Track Weather.
I'm meteorologist Chris Farrell for CBS 12 News. Treasure Coast, stormy afternoon ahead for us on this Wednesday afternoon. Tracking a long line of storms that'll be moving in with heavy rain, lightning strikes, and gusty winds. Watch for local flooding in low-lying areas and local streets this Wednesday afternoon at the rain chance at 80%. Rain overnight on this Wednesday night. Thursday, a 70% chance of rain and storms again. And Friday, the rain chance 60% for scattered showers and storms. Some improvement for the weekend with the rain chance 50% on Saturday and Sunday. At the beaches, watch for lightning storms, strong gusty winds through the afternoon. I'm CBS 12 meteorologist Chris Farrell for WPSL Digital 1590, the talk of the Treasure Coast.
Thank you, Chris. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. WPSL Digital 1590 and News 12, the ones to turn to on the Treasure Coast for up-to-date weather and news.
6:30 at WPSL. And now back to the African American scene with your host from Howard Insurance, Rudy Howard.
Well, tomorrow is a big, big day. I'm going to give you a little teaser. Carol printed for me a summary of some of the statements that Comey's going to make tomorrow based on some of his notes. I'm not going to share that with you now. I'm going to hold on to that till next week because it's going to be such a huge day tomorrow. But I sat here and I read through it, and while there's no death blows in there, there's certainly enough stuff to arouse a lot of questions. And again, that number is 340-1590. That's 340-1590. I think what I find very interesting is this has become totally political. I guess I shouldn't be shocked by that, but since the issue is an attempt to manipulate our election process by one of our ardent enemies, I would think there would be a little more unanimity between the two parties about trying to get to the bottom line of what this is all about. Now, you may feel that this is nothing, and that this is a witch hunt, and I hope you're not that tribal, because if you feel this is a witch hunt, you're being completely tribal, because there's certainly enough questions that warrant investigation. Now, I'm not saying that the president is guilty. He's entitled to get his benefit of the doubt and to get a thorough investigation. But what I am going to say to you is, Lord, there is sure a lot of smoke.
And where there's smoke,
yeah, right.
There's fire.
There's a lot of smoke. Now, sometimes you just have a smoldering ashes that never turn into a flame, but I'm going to just tell you, there's an awful lot of smoke. Now, I guess, again, what bothers me is this should not be a partisan issue. Shouldn't be. We now know, because of the lady that just got arrested for transmitting that document, that they even attempted to get into the voting machines in several states within our country. Russia made an attempt. It's documented. That lady proved that to us when she released that document. So why this is partisan makes no sense to me. I mean, listen, if you're guilty, you're guilty. I mean, it's that simple. And we got Steve on line one. Yes, sir.
How you doing, Rudy?
Okay.
You know, I was shocked when I heard that we had corruption in our government. I was devastated.
We never saw
I had
it
to go to the
coming.
doctor. I had to get some Xanax. It's unbelievable. Also unbelievable is all of the bull droppings that they're spreading. Just put the facts out there and let them fall where they may.
Oh, God,
No.
yes, Steve. That's the point.
Don't restrict anybody's testimony and all that nonsense. You know, you try that in a civil court, find out how fast you're eating bologna sandwiches for
Right.
breakfast.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So this is crazy.
It is.
And for all these intelligence, 19 agencies to say they were involved, and then Donnie the commie says that, oh, no, not them. Oh, it couldn't be them. And Putin, oh, you could be doing it from your bedroom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Listen.
Probably they should have asked him, whose bedroom were you in when you were doing it?
Well, I'm like I said, Steve. Listen, I am not going to be like my counterparts and not make a judgment before the thing plays out. There's a lot of
I
smoke.
haven't heard any facts.
Yeah.
You know, if this was a jury trial, do you think right now they'd look at the jury and go, make a decision? You know? So, I mean, let's at least let the firing squad get the rifles loaded before we give the command to shoot.
Yeah.
And we're not doing that. We're playing games. And that upsets me more than anything, because that makes a mockery out of our system.
Yes.
So,
Listen, already. Now, my conservative friends are going to get very mad at me, but I'm going to tell
you
you.
have conservative friends?
You call those friends?
Well,
Hey,
conservative people that I know.
Don't eat any of the brownies they give you.
Right, that's right. Yes, yeah, right. Listen, I'm at LA Fitness. I don't know if I told the story last week. If I did, forgive me. And one of the guys that I work out with there, he was getting dressed, and he said, Root, I'm going to go to Europe, and when I go to Europe, I'm not telling anybody I'm an American because I'm embarrassed. I said, oh, boy. And I said for the first time, I think I said this last week, I have never been embarrassed by a president. This president embarrasses me.
That's why I call him Donnie the Commie. He's making Russia strong again.
Yeah.
That ought to be his motto.
Yeah, he just...
This is treasonous, what he's doing. What he's saying, these nonsense about banning people coming into this country when Saudi Arabia had 15 of the 19 murderers on 9/11, but we let them in?
I get it, man. I get it.
I mean, come on. I wasn't born yesterday. I was born the day before. But I stayed awake most of yesterday. So I can't fall for this anymore. It's a con job. I'm just not going to put up with it.
Okay. Well, thank you,
Mr. Mask is hearing from me.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Rudy.
Thank you, sir. It's always good to hear from you. This is a loyal listener.
You got to appreciate, though, that it's not always, hey, Rudy, we love what you're doing. You're doing a great job. Keep it up. We don't get much of that.
No.
Because of ideologies and thought processes that some people just can't unconnect themselves to.
Listen, I said this about, I think, 2 months ago. Ideology is dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you cling to ideology, then that does not allow facts to penetrate.
Right.
And when facts don't penetrate, then you can be guilty of making an egregious mistake. And the best example that I can give you for when ideology becomes dangerous is McCarthy. McCarthy adopted that anti-communist ideology, and he destroyed lives as he clung on to that when it simply was not true of all people. And we got Winnie on line one. Yes, Winnie.
How you doing? How you doing over there?
Okay. How about yourself?
Good, good. They talk that FBI or something like that, FBI guy or somebody FBI or something here on the news about Donald Trump or somebody FBI guy. Okay, they trying to impeach Donald Trump. Okay, they trying to impeach and go to his vice president. They talk about what Mike Fitz. They say he ain't no better than Donald Trump. He might be worse than Donald Trump, don't you think?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. You the one supported Donald Trump. What do you think? Do you think Mike Pence would be better than Donald Trump?
I don't know him. I go about what people say. Some people say he might be worse than Donald Trump. I support Donald Trump, but they try to other people. A lot of people don't like Donald Trump. They want to impeach him. Okay, they impeach Donald Trump, but they go to the vice president. Someone say he may not be no better. Might be worse than Donald.
Well, let me ask you a question. Since you supported Donald Trump, do you still feel good about that selection of supporting Donald Trump for president?
I just I'll give him a chance anyway. Some people say he ain't doing he ain't for the poor people, but you know how some Republicans is, they ain't for the poor people. Trying to cut Medicaid, trying to cut food stamps and stuff like that and everything. 4 years, I'm glad 4 years is a limit.
Okay.
I'm just glad 4 years is a limit. And stuff like that and everything. I said, I get a guy a chance. I tried. They say we're trying to make America great again. And he want to, try to bring jobs back to America. But 4 years, I'm glad 4 years is a limit, for the United States. Okay, well, we'll talk.
Okay, thank you, Winnie. And we got Glenn on line one. How are you, sir?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
Good.
You say where there's smoke, there's fire. Can you explain to me what the smoke is?
Well, we have conversations with Russia by Jeff Sessions, Michael Flynn, Jared Kushner, and on and on and on, and others I have not named, where they have, well, you ask me, I'm going to answer your question. And they failed to disclose those discussions when they were applying for their security clearances. That's smoke to me.
No, that's conversation. How is that smoke? I could make accusations about you or anybody else, and somebody could say that that's smoke. You know, I could accuse you of being a child rapist. I could accuse you of being a murderer, but that isn't enough to claim that there's smoke.
Well,
you've got a lot of Democrats that say there is absolutely zero evidence of any collusion, and yet it keeps being carried on and continued as if there is evidence.
Well,
and nobody claims that there's any evidence. So what is the smoke?
I just explained to you what the smoke was. Now, you may dismiss that, but let me put it to you like this. There would be no special prosecutor, there would be no investigation, and there would be no hearings if there was not smoke. And now I'm gonna here is where I'm gonna get you with your hypocrisy. Hillary Clinton had 7 Benghazi hearings, 7. Of those 7 hearings, most of which were conducted by Republicans, all 7 of them said she did nothing wrong. And every time the hearing was over, even though they investigated it and they said she did nothing wrong, you still was ready to indict her. Ex-President Clinton met Loretta Lynch on the airfield. You guys said after the meeting that they had on the airfield that they discussed Hillary Clinton's case. There is no way in hell you would know that because they didn't have a transcript of what they talked about. They told you what they talked about. Now, if you didn't believe that, that's okay. But you were ready to indict her for a conversation that you couldn't hear, and you decided what she said, even after she told you what they said.
Well, one wrong doesn't make a right.
That's
one
not
right doesn't make it wrong.
Well, that's not the point. The point I'm trying to make is stop the hypocrisy.
Well, I'd still like to know what the smoke is, other than conversation.
Well, let me ask you a question. If I have to fill out a form and it says, have you had any contact with a foreign government, and you say no, and we later find out that the answer is yes, does that not arouse some suspicion in your mind? Because you're now caught in a lie now. You're not.
Well,
That's not misinformation. That's a lie.
But the only lie is whether you had a conversation or not. It doesn't indicate anything about what the conversation was. The conversation may have been about babies and grandchildren.
I agree.
Just like Clinton, it may have just been about babies.
I agree with you, and I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I'm going to say you're right. We don't know what the conversation was about, and that's why there's an investigation.
That's the point. There's nothing more than a conversation.
Well,
and you can't claim that a conversation is smoke, that any collusion was going on.
I didn't say collusion. I didn't say there was collusion. What I'm saying to you is, if somebody says they didn't have a conversation and then they later admit, or it is discovered they had a conversation, that gives rise to a question in my mind, and in most reasonable people's minds, it gives rise to a question that needs answers, and that is smoke, my friend.
Okay, if you say so. You know, to me, it's all in the tilt that you put on it. You know, it's all in the relationship you have with who.
It has nothing.
You know,
I'm not.
It means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. You know, I mean, politicians have relationships, communications with foreign politicians that are just normal business. And perhaps when people were asked whether they had conversations with somebody, they didn't think about the
Please,
the idea of the conversation being outside of normal business.
Come
and I think
on,
that
Glenn.
is blown out of proportion.
Put
So
your
to me-
fairness hat on, Glenn. Put your fairness hat on. Did you say that about Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton? Bet you didn't.
You know, nobody knows what happens in that conversation.
Oh, I agree.
Nobody happens in the conversations between politicians and Russian politicians. So to, you know, why is a bigger deal being made out of Republicans' conversations?
Because you lied about it.
Well,
If you hadn't lied, listen. Here's an easy thing that could have happened. Jeff Sessions says, I met with the ambassador of Russia, and we talked about improving relations in our future, and that was the extent of our okay, done. That's a perfectly reasonable conversation to have. So if you're having that conversation, why not say that? If Jared Kushner is trying to establish back-channel communications through a Russian office, not through our office, but through a Russian office, so that communications cannot be identified, does that not concern you? Does that not seem like smoke to you?
No.
Well, I forget who I'm talking to. Yes, you're right. That doesn't seem suspicious to you at all.
No, because there's nothing to indicate that the conversations had anything to do with any illegalities. You know, there's no indication that there was any malice intent.
I didn't say there was.
Well, okay.
I never said that. You never heard me say that that there was a malicious conversation. I can't say that because I don't know. But what I can say is this. You have lost your objectivity completely if you think it's okay for the president's right-hand man to contact Russia and try to establish, as documented by the CIA, a back-channel communication through a Russian operation, and you think that is not worthy of investigation and that is not suspect at all?
Well, there's been open back channels between...
No, you're not answering my question. Don't go back there. Let's deal with the issue at hand.
Nothing new, Rudy. That's nothing new. That's standard practice.
No, it's standard practice to establish a back channel through an adversary's operation in order to keep the conversation secret. Now, I know you're not saying that because you know that's untrue.
There has to be secrets.
There has been always been back channel communications. I'll grant you that. Okay. You can't cite me one example of a back channel communication that was conducted through the opposition's office in order to keep the CIA from hearing the conversation. You can't think of one.
No, you're right. I can't.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So we're done. I think. Okay.
Thank you, Glenn. You did really great tonight.
All right.
Thank you. All right. So, hey, listen. You know, and I start out by saying this, and I'm going to say it again. I am not going to do what they did. They indicted Loretta Lynch for having a conversation with Bill Clinton on the airport, not knowing what the conversation is. That was wrong, and I'm not going to do that because I don't know what the conversation was that existed between the parties who were having dialogue with Russia.
They actually indicted her on that?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. And she said that her and the ex-president were talking about their families and their grandchildren. Not one conservative accepted that explanation. They all jumped to the conclusion that she was having a dialogue with Bill Clinton about his wife Hillary and the Benghazi investigation and the emails. Absolutely, they made that conclusion. I am not going to do that. I am not going to do that. You will never hear me say that. What you will hear me say, and I will say it over and over till it comes to a conclusion, I want to know. This warrants an investigation. I want to see this investigation conducted, and at the end of the day, I want to know what happened and why it was necessary for people to lie about their conversations with our Russian adversaries. I think that's reasonable. That's not partisan, because if they, in fact, meddled in our election process, by God, I want to know that. I don't give a damn if you're Republican or Democrat. You want to know that because you don't want it to happen again. Okay. You got me all excited now because that's just stupid partisanship there. Okay. Let's answer this question in the last 5 minutes. Do you know your neighbor?
I like that one.
Yeah. Do you know your neighbor? That number again is 340-1590.
Does anybody dare answer this question?
I'll bet you there's a bunch of people that are listening to me right now that have no idea, especially people in Port St. Lucie, and people in Fort Pierce may be a little bit better. But
some of the people in Fort Pierce are pretty good at getting it together.
Yeah.
You know.
But the people, they don't know their neighbor.
Yeah.
They don't know anything about their neighbor. Their neighbor could be a mass murderer, and they don't know anything about him.
They're going over there borrowing a cup of sugar.
Yeah. And you know what? That's a shame, because I'll tell you, and Cliff, I know you being from Massachusetts, you probably had the same situation. Growing up in Philadelphia, all the porches were on the front, okay?
Yep.
Right, Cliff?
Yep.
And on a Sunday, in the summertime, in the evening, people sat on their porches, 4 or 5 in a row, and everybody's talking to each other.
Yeah.
Hey, Bill, how's it going? Oh, man, pretty good. I haven't seen you in a while.
They're not talking politics. They're out there talking about in-laws.
Yeah, and the kids are outside playing on the street like I did, little getting dirty and nasty.
Yep.
And so everybody knew everybody. Now we moved the porches from the front to the back. Now nobody knows anybody. We live in our little enclave.
You're onto something here, Rudy. They moved the front, bring back the front porches.
Yeah.
And put a barbecue grill on it.
Yeah.
Because, well, what's the best way to make friends with somebody? Hey, did you eat yet? Come on over. We're eating over here.
Yeah.
That works. It works for everybody.
Yeah. So isn't that? So and you know, a lot of you folks who listen are old timers like me, and you remember those days when you sat on the front. I could even remember we would visit my uncle in Brooklyn, and when I'd go visit him in the summertime, he had the fire escape, but everybody sat on the stoop in front of the building. Everybody sat on the stoop in front of the building, and there'd be 10 people outside sitting on the stoop talking, and kids drinking a soda or whatever. So all of that's gone, and you know what? I think that is a major contribution to our tribal behavior.
Yes.
You agree with me?
Yes.
We just don't know enough about our neighbors and the people that we interact with every day, and it allows us to live in our little bubble.
And when Rudy's talking about tribal nature, that's the wild man of the earth. That's the indigenous one, out of control, so to speak, or I don't want to say that, but basically not living inside of the box at all times.
Yeah, well, when I say tribal, I mean, you know, it's your either with the Democratic tribe or the Republican tribe.
Oh, you mean like gang mentality?
Yes, it's become very tribal. Oh. But anyway, that was stimulating, and
this one's on the archives. It'll be up on YouTube and WPSL TV sometime late tomorrow because I'll get around to all my editing.
Okay.
Tomorrow.
Well, I'd like to thank you so much for listening to the African American scene. And Lord, make sure you see the hearing tomorrow, because that will be the topic next Wednesday. And maybe Glenn will call back after he hears the hearing and have a different opinion. But God bless and be safe, and I'll see you next Wednesday right here for the African American scene.
One good thing about Glenn's call is, you know, everybody who calls this show is not required to make the host look good, like that other guy we have around here around midday. This is WPSL for St. Lucie.
Serving the entire Treasure Coast, Howard Insurance and Associates in Port St. Lucie offers a wide variety of insurance products, along with the very best customer service. Whether you're shopping for the best homeowners coverage at the most affordable value, contact Rudy Howard's team at Howard Insurance and Associates. If you need coverage for your vehicle, call Howard Insurance and Associates, 343-9878. That's 343-9878. Maybe you're planning to add a boat, motorcycle, or RV. Call Howard Insurance and Associates for your free quote at 343-9878 and get the coverage you need at a cost that will fit your budget. For home or business, auto or recreational vehicle, choose Howard Insurance and Associates, 600 Southwest Darwin Boulevard, Suite 206, Port St. Lucie. And for your free rate quote, call them at 343-9878, 343-9878.